Hi, my name is Kat, Boudica librarian, and welcome to my May wrap-up. If you've seen my April wrap-up, which wasn't posted that long ago, you may know that May wasn't the best reading month I had in my life, both in terms of quality and quantity. I'm happy to report that May was quite a bit better. I read 8 books, 6 of those in Dutch, 2 in English, good for a total of 2,343 pages, which, 2,000 to 3,000 pages is kind of where I usually land, so not mad about that. 2 of the books I read were historical fiction. One was literary fiction, one was a mystery, one was nonfiction. I had 1 romance, 1 sci-fi, and 1 thriller. And in terms of rating, I can't complain. I had 1 book that was 3.5 stars, 4 books that were 4 stars, and 3 5-star reads. So a much better reading month than April, to say the least. But let's talk about the books, starting with my least favorite book of the month, working my way up to my most favorite. So first up, I have Springtide by Cilla and Rolf. Börjlind. This is a Scandinavian detective book. I was struggling a bit with whether to put this as a mystery or a thriller. I think I put it as a thriller. Yes, I did. I put it as a thriller. But it sort of falls in between that, as a lot of Scandinavian detective books tend to do. They're a bit darker than like British murder mysteries tend to be, and that's what I usually go to them for. And I was really excited. It started promising. It had a lot of potential. There's a lot going on in this book. So the sort of main plot line is we have Olivia, who is a student at the police academy. She wants to be a detective, and she gets an assignment to look into a cold case, think like what could have gone differently if they had access to modern technologies, like what went wrong, etc. And she wants to interview the person who worked on the case initially, but she cannot find him. Like, no one knows where he is. He just disappeared from the earth, it seems. And so we have that going on, and we have the cold case itself, which is a woman who, like, the killer, like, they dug a hole on the beach where they put the woman in so that just like her head was above ground, and then they waited for the tide to come so she would drown. And then we also have a plot line where there are a lot of attacks on homeless people that are then filmed and put on the internet. So we're trying to figure out what is going on there. And then we also have this like millionaire CEO of this really big multinational company, like a mining thing, where we're not really sure or at least in the beginning, we don't really know what that comes in. It gets, like later on, you find out why it's there. And the thing is, we had all this plot lines, we had a lot going on, and we jumped really fast from like one scene to the next scene to different POV, and I actually didn't mind that. Like, usually that can really bother me, but this time I didn't mind it. I think it was very well done. Sometimes we like actually jumped, but there were also times where like sort of two scenes were happening simultaneously and we would switch back and forth between them, and so that created a lot of tension. But even where there were like really just cuts to a different scene, I didn't mind it. It wasn't hard to follow at all. um but there were just way too many POVs, and way too many characters as well, that if like it was hard to keep all the characters, like to know who they were and to not mix them up. But also the POVs, I just think that there were a couple that just weren't necessary. Like you just could have cut them and the story would be the same, or like there was one scene that was important that was between two people that were both POV characters, and so like you could have given it to like the other person's POV and it would be fine. Like there was some that just weren't necessary, and like it was a lot to keep track of. Also, I thought that the ending was a little bit disappointing. I mentioned the many plot lines, and usually when you have these different threads going on, like they come together in a satisfying, or at least that's the goal, that they come together in a satisfying way, but like they didn't, like at all. There were, at the end, there were still like 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it, really separate plot lines going on. There was one that sort of also served, that I didn't mention now because it came in later, but that also served sort of a purpose in another plot, but wasn't really a big part of that plot, and sort of also semi hanging loose. And so I would have preferred it to focus on one thing rather than all of them. And then also the book opens with like a prologue with the cold case, because there was a witness, like a child, on this beach who saw it from quite a distance. So like he couldn't, he just saw silhouettes. But in this prologue, maybe I just misread it, but to me it seemed as if this woman went to the hole willingly and she didn't really fight back or anything, and I was very intrigued by that. I wanted to know why, but like it wasn't mentioned ever again. It wasn't addressed at all, and like the actual solution like didn't make that make sense, right? And like you just could have said, oh yeah, we drugged her or something. Like that would have been fine, but not even that. Like I just, that was a little disappointing to me. But I was very intrigued. I read it quite fast. I liked just the overall vibes and the overall feeling. So I did give it 4 stars. Then I have 2, and I didn't really know how to rank them amongst each other because I have mixed feelings about both. So I'll just put those in the order that I read them in. This one and the one after this one. So the first one is Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott, the first book in the Boudica series. This is a historical fiction series about Boudica, who was this like British warrior queen who led an uprising against the Romans. It's the first book, and here we like see like her childhood and her becoming this warrior queen. And I really, really, really loved the first half. I really loved the culture of the Iceni. Um, and it felt very whimsical as well, because this book presents their religion as if it's real. So there's like a little magical element as well that I really liked. And so just I really like the vibes. I loved sort of like the nature element to it. Um, I really liked it. And then we have two POVs, Boudica and Bon, and they both like Boudica is actually Boudica, because Boudica is not like her actual name, it's a title, and that's Boudica. And then Bon is her half brother. And we see how Boudica wants to be a dreamer, so like a religious person in this culture. But she's a warrior, because in the prologue, where she was a really young child, the Iceni were attacked, and she defended herself and killed this person. And if you kill in battle, you're officially a warrior. So she's a warrior, but she really wants to be a dreamer, but just the dreams won't come to her. And then when finally a dream comes, it's not a dreamer's dream, it's a warrior's dream. In the reverse, you have Bon, who really wants to be a warrior, but like he's actually a dreamer. And so it's very interesting to see them like wanting the other thing, but sort of both having a different path cut out to them, or cut out for them, than what they really want to do, just like by destiny. And I think that was very interesting to read about. The second half, I struggled with more. There was a choice made that meant that we weren't in Britain anymore and we were somewhere else. I mean, we were still half of the time in Britain, half of the time at this other place. I'm trying not to spoil it. But like every time we were there, I wanted to go back to the Iceni, and I wanted to go back to the Britons and what they were up to and their culture, and because I really liked them, and I didn't care about the plot that wasn't there. Like in Britain we had like trials, and we had warrior school, and it was cool, and really fun. And there I just did not care in the other place. And yeah, I can see why the choice was made, and I can see why people would like the choice. Like, it's not bad writing or anything, it's just personally not the direction that I wanted the story to go in. And so that makes me a little bit nervous for book 2, because it could really go in 2 ways, and I will like one of them, and another one I probably won't. So I hope. But yeah, this book is very well written, so I do recommend it if the premise sounds interesting. And as I said, maybe you like the narrative choice more than I did. And I gave Dreaming the Eagle 4 stars. Then the other book that I sort of have the same level as Dreaming the Eagle is A Century of Wisdom by Herz-Sommer and Caroline Stoessinger. I'm not sure what nationality that second author is, so I don't really know what language to try and pronounce her name by. So sorry if I butchered that. But this is a non-fiction book about Herz-Sommer, who at the time that his book was published, she was the oldest Holocaust survivor. But the book came out in 2014, so that's 10 years ago, so she may have passed away. I'm quite sure that she did. She was born in 1903. She would be incredibly old by now. I think she has passed away since. But yeah, I have very mixed feelings on it, because the content of it I thought was immensely beautiful and very moving. It is like the whole marketing makes it like a Holocaust memoir, which part of it is. Like, there's definitely some of that in here, but I think it is so much more than that. My mom really loves this book and has been telling me to read it for so long, and I've been putting it off because I just thought that it would be a Holocaust memoir, and no offense to those, but like, I read a lot of those stories in my early teens, and like after a while they like, it's just the same thing over and over again, and I didn't want it, and my mom was like, no, this is not, this is a bit different, like, try and read it. So I did, and she was right. This is one a lot broader. It is not that focused on her time in Theresienstadt, which is the concentration camp that she was in. But the thing with Theresienstadt is why this is interesting is that was sort of like the German PR camp. Like, if the Germans want to be like, look, it's very good in these camps, and like, life is beautiful here, then they would show Theresienstadt. And so like there would be music there, and there would be like a lot of artists would be there, and they would still be able to practice their art. And Alice Herz-Sommer was a pianist, right? And she could play the piano. She was really, really talented and really good, and really famous as well for it. So we have a little bit of her time there, but most of it is not there. It is, I don't think Alice is really the main character of this book. Like, character is weird because it's not fiction, but like, you know what I mean. I think the main character is music, and it was really about how music pulled her through not only that time in her life, but just how that was her life, and how just music is just beautiful, and the power of music. And she takes a bit of a backseat in her own story to just let the music take center stage, and she talked about like other musicians and stuff like that. And I thought it was really beautiful. And I thought it was also really beautiful just her radical acceptance of everything. Like, she didn't, like, obviously, like, she didn't think like a lot of things that happened to her were okay, or like a lot of things that happened to other people were okay, but she had this mindset of, look, this is the thing that happened to me, yes, and it was terrible, yes, but life is too beautiful to stay bitter about that and to hate people for that, or to stay hateful for that, and to just make my entire life around this time period. So let's just move on. And just her love of life was so beautiful, and I really loved it for that. So yeah, I thought that the content of the book was very interesting. It's just the writing, and then like one element in particular of the writing, this story is not told chronologically, which I don't see a reason why it would not be. Because like each of the chapters is like a time in her life, but they're just like put in a weird order, and after having read the book, I don't see a reason why they need to be. So like every one of the chapters can stay exactly as it is, just change the order of them, and they would have a great book. But now it made it sometimes really jarring to read, and sometimes like I didn't know when and where exactly we were, and that just made it a bit confusing at times. So I wish that was differently. That was my biggest critique. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I do recommend it. Um, it was quite beautiful, and emotional as well. Then I read Pour l'honneur de Macchawari by Raphaël and Alexandre Morellon. This is a French comic. I forgot to check if there's an English translation of this. Editing me will let you know somewhere on screen. This is a historical fiction story set in the Bay of Bengal in the 17th century. And we have this French marine ship. The crew gets captured by pirates and sold on the slave market. And then through a few things, they end up in the army of this kingdom, empire. I'm not sure which one. I don't think it actually exists. I think it's a fictional one. It's called Macchawari. And we follow them. Like, it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. We have 2 main characters. We have Castan, who was the son of the captain of the Navy ship. His father was killed by the pirates. But so he's a nobleman in France, and he had like power and influence and money, and so he really wants to go back to that and to his old life. And in contrast, we have Barnes, who wasn't even a Frenchman. He was like a mercenary, I think, an English mercenary, who didn't have anything. He was just a crew member. He didn't have a lot. He is now finally getting respect now that he's in the army because he's a good fighter. And so he really wants to stay, but like they're good friends. They really bonded over the time that they were at sea, the time that they spent in the army together. And so like they kind of want to stay together, but also they both want a different thing in life. And so, you know, we have tension because of that. By the time I'm filming this, I've also read the second one, but that was June, so I'm not gonna mention it here. But the tension between them and their friendship, things are happening. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I don't have a ton to say about it. It's like mostly vibes. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. So yeah. Then I read A Psalm for the Wild Builds by Becky Chambers. This is the first book in the Monk and Robot series. It's a cozy sci-fi novella, very wholesome and heartwarming. It's about Cleric Chi, who is a tea monk, which means that he serves tea to people, listens to their problems. Like if they just want to get something off their chest, they can turn to them and they will listen to them and be there for them. And they are really good at their job. But then one time they're going from one town to the next because they travel around to do their tea thing. But they decide, hey, how about I not go to the next town and just take a random turn into the wilderness and just don't do what's planned because they've been a bit unhappy with their life lately, or like actually for quite a while, and like not really satisfied. with their life and not really finding fulfillment in what they're doing. So they go into the wilderness and they find this robot called Moscap. Because robots are named after the first thing that they see when they come into existence. It just they have the best names. Like these robots, they have the best names. Anyway, the robots have sort of gained consciousness and have told to the humans like, yeah, we don't want to work for you anymore. Can we like please leave? And the humans were like, sure. And so the robots left into the wilderness and haven't really interacted with humans since. But now we have this meeting between Chi and Moscap, and they want to learn from each other, and they sort of form a friendship, and it's just the most beautiful and wholesome thing. I love Moscap. It's so wise, and it has such a deep understanding of humans, even if it hasn't seen human before, and just despite not being human itself, it just understands the human condition so well. And so it can be there for Chi and listen to Chi and help them with their feelings. Because Chi has often done that for other people, but no one has really been there for them when they needed someone. Like they never had really anyone to turn to. And so now Moscap is offering that. And I just thought that it was beautiful. I really liked it. I struggled a little bit with the beginning. Like, not that I didn't like it, I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to and as everybody else seems to. But then the second Moscap appeared, I was completely sold and I love it. And I give it 4.5 stars. This was a delight. It came at the right time. For me, like thematically, it's a bit about like a purpose in life, and do you like truly need a purpose, or why is it not enough to just be? And I thought that was really beautiful. So yeah, I do recommend if you haven't read this already. Then we're entering 5-star territory. The first book I gave 5 stars was A Murder is Announced by Agatha Christie, a murder mystery. Miss Marple story. This was my first Miss Marple. It's about this town. They have like a newspaper from the town, and one day there was a little announcement saying, hey, on this day, a murder will happen on this address, just so you know. And people are like, that's a funny invitation to, like, you know, a murder game thing where, like, you know, the lights go out and then there was someone who gets assigned the role of killer and they kill someone, and then you know, the other ones figure out who did it, like a game like that. Except the people who live at this address, they don't know about this. They're like, wait, what? And so this murder actually happens, and so Miss Marple comes in and she solves the case. I really enjoyed it. I mean, the first chapter where everyone read this announcement and was like speculating, like, oh, I think it's a good game. That was a little repetitive because they all had the same reaction. So like, I was like, the first time I was like, okay, can this part be over, please? Can we get into the plot? So yeah, there was just some, you know, casual xenophobia, because those are the joys of reading a book published in the 50s. Anyway, despite those two things, I did really enjoy it. I thought the mystery was very well thought out. I guessed it, which made me feel really good because I usually never guess these things. But I did this time. So yay. I really enjoyed it. I liked how things went. I buddy read this with Kirsten from Reading Nymph. I'll link her channel down below. And we had a lot of fun buddy reading this. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I don't have much to say about it. It was great. And I think this is my favorite Agatha Christie book that I've read so far. Then I also gave 5 stars to Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. This is the 4th Bridgerton book, so Regency romance. This is Colin and Penelope's story, and I was so looking forward to this because I freaking love Penelope. She is great, and I just want her to be happy and to find love, and that happened here. And I am happy that she sort of found someone who really loves her, because we have her mother who's not the greatest, and who often makes remarks that are like really digs at Penelope's self-esteem, which we see in the previous books and in here as well. And she just does not believe that Penelope could find a man and could ever get married, that there would ever be a man who would want Penelope. And I thought that was really hard to read, but I'm happy that Penelope managed to prove him wrong. I love her so much. I love her so much. So yeah, I was so rooting for Colin and Penelope to be together. This book had a lot more plot than the previous ones. With Lady Whistledown, if you've been following this channel, you know that I love Lady Whistledown. She is amazing. And so we got some plot with her. We got sort of a mystery where people try to figure out who she is. And I thought it was very interesting and very fun and very compelling and intriguing. I'm really sad that we won't be getting more from Lady Whistledown Society Papers in following books, because people don't know who she is. Yeah, it's a little sad, but you know, what do we do about it? I did like the family dynamics among the Bridgertons. Again, that's like the thing, one of my favorite things about the series. They just have this deep love for each other, and also Penelope, like, they sort of take her in as like, yeah, I love it so much. This is my favorite Bridgerton book so far. So yeah, I'm really excited about book 5. And then the last book that I have to talk about, my favorite book of the year. Wait, let me check that I really have talked about them. Yes, the final book is Orpheus Builds a Girl by Heather Parry. This is a sci-fi gothic historical psychological thriller literary fiction retelling of the myth of Orpheus and like Frankenstein, with a little dash of Hades and Persephone in there as well. Like, it's a lot of things, but it was so good. Like, the start was a little bit slow and it wasn't really what I expected and what it was marketed as, but once it got going, it really got going, and it was great. It is about this girl called Luciana, and she's very ill, And so we have this doctor who treats her, but also gets really obsessed by her because he has decided that this girl is the love of his life and his promised bride. Um, doesn't really matter what Luciana thinks about. So it's like a tale of obsession. And then even when Luciana dies from this condition, the doctor's like, this isn't the end. How about I find a way to bring her back to life so we can be together forever and ever and ever and ever. And it's really disturbing in a lot of different ways. But it's really good. It's uncomfortable and emotional at times. And it made me mad. It gave me all the feels. I like that we didn't get Luciana's POV in the story at all. We added the doctor's POV and we had her sister's POV. And I thought that was a very interesting choice because Luciana is sort of silenced by everyone around her. Like, she isn't allowed to have a voice and have agency in this situation. And so now she's also being silenced by the narrative. And we don't really hear what Luciana feels and thinks about the entire situation and what she wants. Like, we can sort of, like, we have her actions to go off of, and they lean much more heavily in the POV of the sister, which is telling us that she really didn't want this. Like, we know that is the what she wants based on just her actions. Like, there is one point where she literally asked her siblings, like, don't leave this doctor into the house anymore. Like, I don't want him here. Just keep him out by any means possible. I'm begging you. But the doctor, like, managed to manipulate his way back in. And then there's this other instance where the doctor has, like, locked himself and Luciana in Luciana's bedroom. And, like, Luciana is, like, she's very weak at this point, so she's like literally crawling towards the door to try and get out, because the doctor, like, barricaded the door and everything, but she just isn't physically able to get there, and so she's stuck with this doctor in this room, and no one can get in or go out except for the doctor. But the doctor doesn't want to because, like, he's with his promised bride and the love of his life, and they belong together, blah blah blah. And what this doctor does to Luciana and does to this family is horrible, and this family just has to sit there and let it happen, and there's not really something that they can do, or at least the siblings have to, because the mom is totally enabling this doctor. Like, the mom could stop this at any given second, but she does not, because this doctor has really manipulated her into thinking that if she does that, like, she shows that she really doesn't care about her own daughter, because she just is willing to let her die. And that's sort of the narrative that we get from this doctor. Like, it doesn't matter what this family does. He always managed to twist it in a way that made it seem as if the family didn't love Luciana at all and didn't care for her and just were fine with her dying. They were a bad family. Well, that was not true. Like, there was literally nothing that they could do, and they did a very, like, reasonable and respectful thing. And time again, this doctor was the one disrespecting the family, disrespecting Luciana, and just the natural order of being. But he managed, he attempted to twist it every time in a way that he was the good guy and they were the bad guys. And so when the story comes out in the media to the general public, it is twisted by this doctor's narrative. And so people who don't know any of the people involved, who don't know the story, just are gonna have an opinion about it, and they're gonna side with the doctor. And how dare this family keep these two loved ones apart from each other, and this doctor clearly has the best intentions and has Luciana's best interests at heart, so how cruel could this family be to do what they're doing? And it's so hard to read, and just how far this doctor is able to go, and is even encouraged to go, is insane. And the worst part is that, like, I could totally see this happening in real life. Like, not the science behind like bringing people back to life necessarily. Like that is very like sci-fi-y, but like the reaction of the people if such a thing would occur, like I could totally see this happening in real life. Um, and that's the worst part about it. And the saddest part about it, and the part that makes me mad. But yeah, it was really good. Um, the story in the beginning, the story is not yet what it is marketed as. Like, I don't say that story's bad in the beginning, but like I wanted obsessive love and gothicness and stuff, which is not what the beginning is. Like, the doctor and Luciana meet like about a third into the book. So before that, we have a bit of backstory on both of them. But yeah, overall, I really love this book. It was great. I highly recommend. It's my book of the month. I give it 5 stars. It's just, it was so good. It was just so freaking good. So there we have it. That was my May wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. And also let me know what your favorite book was that you read in May, because I'm always looking for more good books to read. So that was the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again in another video. Bye.